Let me ask you something. What if a revenge story had a hero who was, well, kinda useless? Clumsy, scared, totally incompetent? That is the absolutely brilliant and brutal idea behind the 2013 indie gem Blue Ruin. So today we're gonna dive in and break down just how this movie so masterfully rips apart the revenge thriller, one realistic, painful step at a time.
So when you hear revenge movie, what's the first thing that pops into your head? It's probably someone like John Wick, right? A hyper-skilled professional in a sharp suit. Or maybe Liam Neeson in Taken, a dad with a very, very particular set of skills. We've been taught to expect a certain type of hero and a very specific, very satisfying brand of justice.
And there's a reason for that. The whole genre pretty much runs on a formula, a fantasy that we all know and love. You get this super competent hero, a totally rock-solid reason for their bloody mission, and action scenes that feel more like a dance than a dirty fight. And it all wraps up with this clean, cathartic feeling of victory. The bad guys are gone, justice is served. It's a powerful formula, and hey, it works.
But this is where Blue Ruin steps in and just flips the whole table over. It starts asking these really uncomfortable questions. Like, what happens when the guy seeking revenge is clumsy, terrified, and completely out of his league? What if the violence isn't cool or stylish, but just awkward and messy and kind of pathetic? That's the core idea that makes this film so unforgettable.
Okay, so to really appreciate what Blue Ruin does, we first got to understand the rules it's about to break. Let's look at the kind of movie it's pushing back against.
Now, let's meet our protagonist, and I want you to forget everything you know about suave assassins or grizzled ex-cops. Blue Ruin gives us the exact opposite of that. Meet Dwight Evans.
Our so-called hero is Dwight, and when we first see him, he's not gearing up or making a plan. Nope, he's scrounging for food in dumpsters and breaking into empty houses just so he can take a bath. This is a man who has been completely hollowed out by trauma, living on the absolute edge of society. His whole life has been boiled down to this one, single, simmering goal.
And this contrast, it's everything. The fantasy hero, the Liam Neeson type, he's basically a force of nature. But Dwight is just a guy. He's not some sleeper agent. He's an amateur running on pure grief. He's not confident. You can see the terror in his eyes in almost every scene. And that right there is the film's first brilliant move towards brutal realism.
And his incompetence isn't just an idea the film throws at you, you see it in agonizing detail. His whole quest is just a comedy of errors, except it's not funny at all. He tries to buy a gun, can't afford it. He steals one from a car, can't get the trigger lock off. When he finally commits his first act of revenge, he totally bungles it, leaving his own car keys at the scene and escaping in the victim's car, only to find out, oops, someone's in the trunk. Every single step he takes is just a panicked, clumsy stumble.
So that brings us to how the movie actually shows the violence. Because if your hero is an amateur, you can bet the action that follows is anything but glamorous.
You see, the director, Jeremy Saulnier, he wasn't interested in making cool-looking shootouts. He said he wanted the film to feel gut-level and visceral. He tells the story with his camera, not with long speeches. And that camera does not look away from the awkward, ugly truth of what's happening.
And there is no better example of this than the infamous arrow scene. We've all seen it, right? The hero gets shot, grits his teeth, and pulls the bullet out of his own shoulder. Well, when Dwight gets an arrow in his leg and tries to do the same thing, the result is just painfully real and darkly hilarious. He goes to a store, buys supplies, tries to play the tough guy, and then fails completely because, surprise, it hurts an unbelievable amount. He just passes out and has to go to a real hospital. It is the perfect takedown of a classic movie trope.
And that's really the whole point. In Blue Ruin, violence doesn't solve a single thing. It's not satisfying, it's not a release. Every single act of aggression, no matter how justified Dwight thinks he is, just makes everything a million times worse. It kicks off this messy, terrifying cycle that spirals way out of his control.
And that chain reaction, that is the beating, bloody heart of this entire film. This isn't a story about justice. It's a story about the destructive, absolutely pointless nature of feuds.
You know that famous Confucius quote? Before you embark on a journey of revenge, dig 2 graves. One reviewer pointed out that this line is basically the entire movie in a nutshell. It's a warning that Dwight, lost in his grief, completely fails to understand. He thinks he's just digging one grave, but he's really digging one for himself and for everyone he claims he's trying to protect.
Because what Dwight doesn't get is that he didn't start something new.
He just reignited an old, tragic fire. This whole feud between the Evans and the Clenlins didn't start with his parents' murder. It started a generation before that, with an affair. So Dwight's act of revenge? It isn't an ending. It's just the next bloody chapter in a pointless, decades-long war between two families.
And then comes the gut punch. The one detail that pulls the rug out from under this entire quest and turns it into a full-blown tragedy. The man Dwight killed, Wade Cleland Jr., he wasn't even the one who murdered his parents. He was just a kid at the time, and he took the fall for his own father. Dwight's one big act of justice was built on a complete lie, making all the bloodshed that follows even more senseless.
So, with an unconventional hero like this and themes that are this bleak, you have to wonder, why did this film get so much praise? What is it about Blue Ruin that just sticks with you long after the credits have rolled?
Well, for starters, the critics went absolutely wild for it. The film is sitting at a staggering 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, that's a huge achievement for any movie, let alone a small, low-budget indie thriller. And that score really tells you just how powerfully this movie pulls off its vision.
Because ultimately, Blue Ruin is a masterclass in how to deconstruct a genre. It takes that power fantasy of revenge and slams it down into a reality that is anything but fantastic. It gives us an anti-hero who is, as one critic put it, strangely relatable for the simple fact that he's so bad at this. And it does it all with barely any dialogue, building this unbearable tension through its visuals and leaving you with what another critic perfectly called a disquieting aftertaste. There's no satisfaction here, there's only ruin.
And that's the question the film really leaves you chewing on. By showing us the true, ugly, clumsy cost of an eye for an eye, Blue Ruin forces us all to ask, is that fleeting feeling of vengeance ever really worth the catastrophic price? Can a story like this ever, truly, have a happy ending?